Every man who has ever transformed his life can point to one exact moment. Not when he was motivated, not when he felt ready, not when the conditions were perfect. The moment he stopped negotiating with himself and started treating his own word as law. That moment is available to you right now. Most men will never take it. I want you to think about every time you said the words, "I'm going to lock in." Maybe it was January 1st. Maybe it was after a breakup hit you harder than you expected. Maybe it was 2 a.m., video after video, feeling something that felt like fire building in your chest. And you meant it. That's the part nobody talks about. You genuinely meant it. For 3 or 4 days, you moved differently. You were up before the alarm. You trained like it meant something. You ate clean without it feeling like sacrifice. You looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a while, you recognized someone you respected. Then one morning the alarm went off and you hit snooze. Just once, just today. Then you skipped the gym because you were tired. Just this week, you trained hard. Then the cheat meal, then the late night, then the scroll session. And within 10 days, you were back. Same baseline, same version of yourself, wondering what's wrong with you. Here's the first thing I need you to understand. Nothing is wrong with you. That cycle is not a character flaw. It is a design flaw. You are trying to build a permanent structure on a foundation that was never meant to hold permanent weight. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what that foundation was, why it collapses every time, and what to replace it with. Let's talk about what motivation actually is, because most men treat it like a resource they have or don't have, as if some men are born with more of it and that's why they succeed. That's not what motivation is. Motivation is a neurochemical state driven primarily by dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with anticipation and reward. When you watch a transformation video at 2 a.m., your dopamine spikes. Your brain is responding to the anticipation of reward, the imagined version of yourself 6 months from now. That spike feels like fire. That fire feels like it will last. But dopamine is not designed for endurance. It's designed for sprints. It spikes when the reward is novel and anticipated. It flatlines when the reward becomes familiar or when the work required to reach it becomes clear. This is why day 1 of locking in always feels electric and day 11 feels like mud. The dopamine from the imagined result hasn't grown, but the reality of the daily cost has become visible. You're not weaker on day 11. Your neurochemistry is behaving exactly as it was designed to. The problem is, you were trying to run a marathon on a fuel source designed for a 100-meter sprint. This is the motivation trap. And every man who has ever failed to sustain a transformation fell into it, not because they lacked discipline, but because they were relying on the wrong mechanism. Here's the reframe. Locking in is not a motivation state. It is an identity consolidation. Let me explain what that means and why it changes everything. Your brain has one overwhelming priority above all others: consistency between your actions and your identity. Psychologists call this cognitive consistency. When your behavior contradicts how you see yourself, your brain generates discomfort, cognitive dissonance, that drives you to resolve the conflict. Usually men resolve that discomfort in the wrong direction. They don't change the behavior, they adjust the identity. I'm not really the kind of person who wakes up at 5 a.m. I work better at night. I've tried the gym thing, it's not really me. I'm just not a disciplined person. Every one of those statements is your brain editing your identity downward to match your behavior. And the longer you let it, the more accurate it becomes. Your identity shapes your behavior. Your behavior reinforces your identity. Either that loop is working for you or against you. The men who lock in permanently make a different move. They set the identity first before the behavior confirms it, and they let the dissonance work in their favor. I am a man who trains 4 times a week. Not, I want to train 4 times a week. Not, I'm trying to get into training. I am a man who trains 4 times a week. The moment you say that and mean it, every session you skip creates friction. Not guilt, friction. The gap between who you said you are and what you just did. And that friction is the mechanism. You don't need more willpower. You need to make the cost of quitting higher than the cost of executing. Identity level commitment does exactly that. This is why 2 men can have the same external goal and completely different outcomes. The first man wants to get fit. His goal is a result. The result lives in the future. On any given Tuesday morning when he's tired and cold and the gym bag is across the room, the result feels distant and the bed feels close. He stays in bed. The second man is someone who trains. His goal is an identity. The identity lives right now. On that same Tuesday morning when he's tired and cold, skipping the gym isn't failing to reach a goal. It's contradicting who he is. He gets up. Same alarm, same cold morning, same tired body, different operating system. The gap between those two men is not talent. It's not genetics. It's one decision made at the identity level that changed the weight of every decision that followed. Before we get to the shifts, I want to give you the science, not because science makes this more real, but because understanding the mechanism removes the mystery and replaces it with something actionable. When you repeat a behavior consistently, your brain undergoes a process called myelination. Myelin is a fatty sheath that wraps around neural pathways and increases the speed and efficiency of signal transmission. The more you repeat a behavior, the more myelin builds, the faster and more automatic the neural pathway becomes. This is the actual biological basis of habit, not a metaphor, a physical change in your brain tissue. In 2010, researchers at University College London studied 96 participants trying to form new habits. They tracked how long it took for behaviors to become automatic. The average was 66 days, not 21, 66. Some behaviors took as few as 18 days. Some took as long as 254. The complexity of the behavior determined the timeline. Here's the part that matters. Missing one day had no significant impact on the final outcome. What mattered was returning. The men who locked in weren't perfect. They were consistent at returning. Every time you choose execution over the comfortable option, you're adding myelin to a pathway. Every time you override the alarm, the craving, the excuse, you're making the next override fractionally easier. Not motivationally easier, neurologically easier. The tipping point, the moment the behavior feels natural rather than effortful, is not a mystery. It's biology. And you can't think your way to it. You can only act your way through it. Of habit formation wasn't motivation or willpower. It was consistency of cue. Doing the behavior in the same context at the same time, every day. The brain doesn't automate the behavior. It automates the response to the trigger. 6 shifts that turn temporary motivation into permanent identity, in sequence. Each one builds on the last. Before anything else, before the alarm time, before the training program, before the meal plan, you write one sentence, not what you want to achieve, who you are. I am a man who controls his body, his time, and his attention. I am a man who does what he says he will do. I am a man who shows up regardless of how I feel. This sentence is not an affirmation. It's a cognitive anchor. The difference: affirmations describe a desired state. Identity declarations describe a current truth that you're choosing to make real through your actions. Write it by hand, not on your phone, by hand. Handwriting activates encoding processes that typing does not. The physical act of writing creates a memory trace that reading does not. Put it somewhere you see before you sleep and when you wake up. Not to feel good about it, to keep the standard visible. Because here's what happens without it. The standard drifts. You make small exceptions that don't feel like exceptions. Then you make them again. Then the exception becomes the baseline. The declaration is the fixed point. Everything else is measured against it. Pick a wake time. Not optimal, not aspirational, non-negotiable. When the alarm goes off, your feet hit the floor. No snooze, no phone check, no renegotiation. Here's why this specific habit anchors everything else. The decision to get up when the alarm goes off is the first test of your word every single day. If you negotiate it, if you tell yourself just 5 more minutes and mean it, you have begun your day by breaking a promise to yourself. And that break is invisible. Nobody knows. Nobody cares, except your nervous system, which records it. Every snooze is a repetition of a different identity. The man whose word means nothing when nobody is watching. And conversely, every morning you get up when you said you would, no matter how you feel, is a repetition of the identity you declared. The specifics of what you do in the morning matter less than the fact that you did what you said. 7 consecutive mornings of keeping that promise will change how you feel about yourself in ways that are difficult to articulate and impossible to fake. This is not about productivity. It's about the relationship between you and your own word. 3 actions, every day, non-negotiable, not 10, not a full routine. 3, the reason it's 3 is specific. Decision fatigue is real. When you wake up with a 20-point checklist, you're spending cognitive resources on sequencing and prioritization before you've done anything. That overhead accumulates. By the afternoon, the list is a source of stress rather than structure. 3 is manageable in a way that doesn't depend on circumstances. Sick, Do all three lighter. Traveling, all three adapt. Late home from work, all three still happen. Choose actions that span the three domains that most directly affect your sense of self: physical, mental, and intentional. Physical, something that maintains sovereignty over your body. Training, walking, cold exposure, something daily, non-optional. Mental, something that maintains sovereignty over your mind. Reading, writing, reviewing your goals, something that keeps you oriented toward the man you're building instead of the noise around you. Intentional, something that maintains sovereignty over your time. 1 hour of protected work on the thing that matters most. Not reactive work, not emails, not messages. The work that moves you forward. These three don't need to be long. Combined, they might take 2 hours. But they must be locked. The goal isn't productivity. The goal is that every day ends with 3 kept promises. Some days, that's all you have. And some days, 3 kept promises is enough to keep the identity intact until the next day. Your environment is currently making decisions for you before you're conscious enough to override them. The phone on the nightstand means the first thing your nervous system encounters in the morning is other people's priorities, other people's content, other people's reality, before you've established your own. The junk food in the kitchen means the decision to eat badly doesn't require effort. It requires no decision at all. The default action is the wrong one. The laptop on the couch means work and rest happen in the same physical space, which degrades the quality of both and makes the boundary between them invisible. Environmental design is not a lifestyle hack. It's a recognition of a fundamental truth. Willpower is a finite resource, and relying on it for decisions that your environment could make for you is an inefficient use of a limited asset. The man who locks and redesigns his environment so the default action is the right one. Gym clothes laid out the night before, the alarm in the other room so you have to stand up to turn it off, the phone charging outside the bedroom, the book on the pillow where the phone used to be, the healthy food at eye level, the workstation reserved only for deep work. None of these changes require willpower to maintain. They require one decision each, once, and then they nudge every subsequent decision in the right direction automatically. This is the difference between a man who fights his environment every day and a man who spent one afternoon designing an environment that fights for him. Most men have goals. Almost no men have standards. A goal is a destination. A standard is a minimum level of performance that applies regardless of how you feel. The man with a goal trains when he's motivated. The man with a standard trains regardless. The difference sounds small. The compound effect of that difference over 12 months is an entirely different life. Here's how to build your standard. For every domain that matters: training, sleep, nutrition, work, focus. Write down the minimum acceptable version, not the ideal, the minimum. I train 4 times per week. If I miss a session, I make it up by Sunday. There's no week where I train fewer than 4 times. I sleep at 10:30 p.m. on weekdays. Phone off, room dark, non-negotiable. I eat to my protein target every day. I don't track everything, I track that. The minimum acceptable standard is not where you aim, it's the floor. You never go below. The reason most men never build this is that setting a standard creates accountability. You can't quietly let it slide. You either met it or you didn't. That clarity is uncomfortable. It's also what makes change permanent, because when your standard becomes your identity, when the floor becomes who you are rather than what you do, going below it stops being an option and starts being an impossibility. Every Sunday night, 10 minutes maximum, 3 questions, written answers, every week. 1, what did I promise myself this week? 2, what did I deliver? 3, where did I renegotiate? Not where you failed, where you renegotiated. Because almost every breach of standard doesn't happen in one moment of weakness. It happens in a quiet negotiation 5 minutes earlier. The alarm goes off. You don't immediately turn it off, you consider it. You tell yourself, you'll get up in 5 minutes. That consideration, that 5-second pause, is the negotiation. The audit forces you to find the negotiation, not the failure. Because once you find where the negotiation happens, you can close it. Most men sleepwalk through their weeks. They have a vague sense of whether things went well or badly, but no actual data. no honest accounting. The audit closes that loop. It also does something else. When you look at a week's worth of honest accounting, here's what I said, here's what I did, here's the gap. Two things happen. In good weeks, it builds self-respect in a way that no external validation can match. You see the evidence of your own integrity. That evidence compounds. In hard weeks, it removes the comfortable fiction. You cannot tell yourself you're on track if the written record says otherwise. And the discomfort of that truth is more motivating than any video at 2 a.m. Here's the number, 66. That's the average threshold. 2 months and 6 days of consistent execution before the behavior stops requiring effort and starts requiring intention to stop. On the other side of 66 days of this, the declaration, the alarm, the 3 non-negotiables, the designed environment, the standard, the weekly audit, the man you're building stops feeling like a performance. He starts feeling like reality. The alarm goes off and you don't negotiate because getting up is you now. Not a habit you're protecting, a reflex of who you are. The gym isn't a chore because your body has been recalibrated to expect it. Missing it feels wrong, not because of discipline, because of identity. The screen goes off at 10:30, not because you're strict, but because you know who you are after a bad night's sleep and you stop tolerating that man. This version of you doesn't watch motivation videos. He doesn't need external fire because he generates his own. His operating system was rewritten, one kept promise at a time, until the old version became genuinely foreign. That's what locking in actually means. Not grinding indefinitely, not suffering until it gets easier, building until the grind becomes who you are, until execution is your resting state, and negotiation requires more energy than following through. 66 days. Every man reading this has 66 days in him. The question isn't whether you have the time, it's whether you're willing to spend it becoming someone you've never been. One more thing before the CTA, and this is the one most people skip. Locking in is not a solitary act. The environment we talked about, physical environment, is only one layer. There's a social environment that is doing the same thing. If the men around you normalize skipping sessions, eating badly, staying up late, having no standards, you will spend every day fighting social gravity in addition to your own resistance. That friction is real and it compounds. The men who lock in permanently almost always have at least one person in their orbit who holds a higher standard than they currently do. Not someone who motivates them, someone whose existence makes certain excuses impossible. You cannot tell a man who trains at 5 a.m. every day that you couldn't find the time. Find that person, or become that person for someone else. Either direction works. Both are better than going alone. Comment day 1 if tomorrow is when it starts. Not symbolically, actually. Alarm set. 3 non-negotiables written down. 1 sentence that says, who you are now. Subscribe, because next week is the complete masculine presence formula. How your physical baseline, your aura, and your frame combine into something that operates before you've said a word. Everything we've built in the last 5 videos comes together there.